Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Good afternoon. My name is Julia. I work at Family Housing Advisory Services. For those of you that are not familiar with our agency, I'll share some of the work that we do in the community. But today's topic, a pretty strong topic. Are you in control of your credit? That's a really good question to ask and be able to answer. What is your credit? Your credit history looks like? What is your credit score? And the reason why we want to know that information is consumers is because credit impacts everything that we do nowadays. How much we pay for products, what are the interest rates? And we know that financially, if we pay high interest rates for everything that we purchase, it makes it very tough to be able to handle all the other bills that we have. Very passionate about credit. My work here at the agency, I oversee the financial education program. I've been doing this for about 25 years or so, from banking to credit union, worked in bankruptcy, consumer lending, homeownership lending. I did a little bit of everything, but also in order for me to provide this information and also work with clients, we have to be certified. So there's a lot of changes in the credit industry. So we have to keep up with all the new things that are happening. So Family Housing Advisory Services, we've been in the community for 52 years, and our mission is to help individuals achieve housing stability and financial security. We know that without ownership, either through a 401k, purchasing your home, be able to pay all your bills on time, if without having that stability, it's hard to achieve that financial security. So some of the programs that we have, we have our tenant service department. They assist individuals that they're looking to find an affordable place to live, rental, in a rental situation. A lot of times if credit is a barrier, because nowadays landlords, management companies, they look at the credit history, but also look at the credit score. So if you don't have a particular credit score and you want to move into an MP Dutch property, the lease might not be approved. So the tenant service department program does a lot of that work. They make connection in the community to make sure they kind of champion, they work with the client and the landlord to make sure that that individual can get into that apartment. Right now, due to COVID, we do have some assistance for both rental. We do have assistance for utilities, and then also with mortgage payments. And the initial screen that you see is the main number, the 934-7924 is the number to call, but also our website, www.fastinc.org, would be able to get you in contact with all of us. Next slide, please. I kind of started the slide before. So tenant service, I kind of explained the work that they do. We also have the Fair Housing Center of Nebraska and Iowa is part of our agency. They are the watchdogs when it comes to housing discrimination. They investigate discriminatory cases. If an individual goes to sign a lease and they feel that they were not treated fairly, they launch a complaint through the Fair Housing, and then the Fair Housing will send testers out there to verify that that landlord, that management company are not choosing who they put in their properties, but everybody's rights are met. Also, the Fair Housing Center, they have individuals that they work with the landlord and the tenant to make sure that both rights are met. So if you get a complaint where my landlord is not repairing my furnace, it's cold, the Fair Housing Center will come in and contact the management company, the landlord, and basically provide what they call a 14-day letter. This repairs have to be completed, and then they kind of stay with the landlord, the management company, make sure that the work is completed and the right of the tenant are met, their needs are met. We have an amazing homeownership education program. That's for anyone that's on the path to purchase a home, not really how to get started, who to talk to. We have a workshop. It's a 12-hour workshop. Right now it's provided via Zoom, where the individuals learn now what's available in the community? Where can I purchase a home? What is the going purchase price? What is my affordability? We talk about credit. We talked about inspections. We talk about appraisals. Kind of individuals learn the language that mortgage companies and all the key players, the language that they use. So it makes, getting approved for a mortgage loan and finding that home a little bit easier, not as stressful. We also have a foreclosure prevention program where individuals that own a home and they're struggling making their monthly payments, we have counselors that they'll contact the mortgage company and kind of be the middle person between the mortgage company and the homeowner. So that way the homeowner doesn't, agree to repayment plans or to different options that later on might jeopardize their home. So that's what the counselors work, the work that they do. Just by contacting our agency, once an authorization is signed between the counselor and the homeowner, then that counselor basically starts contacting the mortgage company and set up a plan. And like I said, I work in the financial education program. We provide monthly workshops. This is just 1 hour of our 6-hour workshop that we have available, open to anyone in the community. Just have to pre-register for the workshop. Again, Zoom workshop. But the work that we actually do with the clients is the financial coaching, case management that we provide. There's no cost for that service. And we typically work with individuals. They come in and say, I've been denied for a loan. I've been denied for an apartment. I can't buy my house because of my credit. At that point, we start the work, which is, typically a one-on-one type of setting. We look at the individual's credit, income. We look at their current expenses and basically come up with a plan, a path to get that individual, if it is cleaning up their credit history, increasing their credit score, to get that individual to a point that they're able to apply for a loan and not being denied, and also get approved for lower interest rates. So if any of you, or if you know of anyone that's needing that service, feel free to forward our information. Just have individuals contact us, and then we can set up that appointment to start that work. Also, we have asset building, because again, as I mentioned, through income, we're not going to accomplish that financial stability just through income. We also have to ownership is huge when it comes to to that financial stability. So we have a program that assists individuals that meet an income qualification. They save into a savings account monthly, and their savings are matched for homeownership, also to start or expand a micro business, or for post secondary education, or a trade. Some individuals come in and they're just looking for a trade, and the program right now matches. If the individual saves $2,000, we match it with $2,000. So sometimes, it covers pretty much all the tuition with other grants and assistance, where individuals, they don't have to take out a loan. And the same with homeownership. If the individual saved $2,000, they receive $2,000 that can be used towards down payment, closing cost assistance. So that way, that sometimes, saving $4,000 takes a while, but with the assistance of the program, the individuals only have to save the $2,000, and the program will match the other $2,000. And then we have the Omaha Earned Income Tax Coalition. And right now, obviously, tax season, we're already processing tax returns. We do have a system, and I did share the flyer how to contact us, either through 211 or through our tax office, where individuals can just upload their tax information. There's tax preparers. They'll prepare the return and actually do electronic signature, and then both the state and federal are electronically filed. So the individuals don't really have to mail out or do anything of that nature. We also have appointments where individuals come in and drop off their documents. because of COVID, we had to kind of make those changes. Individuals can drop off their documents. The tax preparer will prepare them, another appointment set up for picking up the documents and signature. All that is available at our tax site. We have a main office on 3605 Q Street, but also the tax preparers are, they have mobile sites at Habitat for Humanity, Douglas County Housing. We do have a mobile site at the Council Bluffs Library. So there's, the different places in the community available for document drop-offs. And there's no cost to the service. There's no income qualifications either. Obviously, if an individual is making over 200,000, probably not utilize our services, but otherwise there's no income guidelines in order to receive the services. And then finally, we have Omaha 100. They are a nonprofit mortgage lender. They provide mortgage loans throughout the community. Omaha 100 provides underwriting for nonprofit developers such Holy Name Housing, the City of Omaha and Council Bluffs, Habitat for Humanity. They build the homes. Omaha 100 provides the financing. They do have available a down payment assistance. It's a grant that's forgiven after 5 years for up to $4,000. Again, if the individual utilizes and qualifies for that $4,000, they live in the house for 5 years, that $4,000 is totally written off. They don't have to pay any of that back. So those are the programs available at Family Housing. One agency, multiple programs available. Next slide, please. And the next slide, it just kind of talks about the financial education workshop, where to log in. And again, I did provide the flyer, but if you go on our website, there's monthly classes already set up. You just would have to schedule for the workshop that works with your time and with your availability. All right, so let's kind of get into credit. That's what we're here for this afternoon. What is credit? And why is credit so important? The question is, why is so important? Like I stated earlier, it does impact everything that we do, from buying a house, from signing a lease, from insurance coverage, either homeownership insurance or vehicle insurance. Those providers now look at a credit history in order to determine if they were able to, provide the services to the clients. Like I said, a landlord is going to look at the credit history to see who the individuals owe money to and if they're paying on time. Are they considered a risky client for them? Are they going to pay the rent on time? That's what that credit history is looked for. They also look for things like previous evictions, because if someone doesn't complete their lease and leaves rental situation with an unpaid balance, or sort of get kicked out of the apartment, an eviction is filed, and that also becomes the history on that individual's the individual's report. So a landlord, the management company, is going to look for things, unpaid balances. They're going to look for an eviction. And like I said, some management companies now, they're looking at a credit score, which it could vary, could be from a 680 and above in order to sign a lease. Now, an insurance company looks at the history, at the credit history, not so much the credit score, but the credit history, to see if they would become a risky client to them. At that point, they come up with a premium for a riskier individual, even if they have no driving, their driving record is perfect. Most of the time, their monthly premium is a little bit higher because they're considered risky consumers at that point. And then employers. Now, employers look at a credit report now, not to determine if that individual can do the job, right? Because a credit history will not provide that information. But what they look for is if the individuals have a lot of unpaid debt. Most of employers in town, they don't take on that risk because it becomes costly for their employers. And how that happens is creditors want their money back, right? We usually signed a contract stating we're going to pay you back. I'm buying a car. I sign a contract. I'm going to pay that loan back, 24, 36 months. I'm going to pay it on time each month. If consumers default on that agreement, the creditor is still going to want their money back. So what they do is they do a little bit of research. They check and see if that individual is working, how much money they make. And then at that point, if there's no agreement between the consumer and the creditor will file a legal document called a judgment. And a lot of times they go after wages. They do fill, they send a garnishment to the employer, where the employer has to take money out of the individual's paycheck and start paying back the creditor. And it's costly for the employers. Their accounting changes and they don't want to take on a lot of that cost. And we are not, we're in no fault state, Nebraska and Iowa both, meaning that an employer does not have to explain that they're not giving the job because of credit, but also they can fire someone because of, multiple garnishments and all that. So it makes it a little bit tricky to even get, employment. Next slide. I know I keep on forgetting to ask you to switch. So if it can go one more, please. Sorry. All right. So the Fair Credit Act is it's good information for us consumers to know. It does protect us consumers. How does it do that? If we look at our credit history and we see that there's inaccurate information being reported, possibly, accounts that they've been paid, but they still show open, we can contact the credit reporting agencies and dispute that information. If it's outdated information, paid accounts, more than 7 years of age, they've been on the credit history for more than 7 years, that information can be removed. So us consumer can have that communication with the credit bureaus to clean up our credit history. The cleaner the credit history is, the better off we are as consumers. Maybe there's the wrong spelling of our names, last names, maybe addresses that we never lived at. All that information can be removed from our credit history so it looks pretty accurate, up to date. Next slide, please. Also, the Fair Credit Act came about in 1980 or so. Consumers at that point, they were applying for credit. They were either denied or approved. If an individual got denied, basically they would receive a denial letter from the creditor, and with that denial letter they were able to obtain a copy of that credit report that the creditor, the bank, credit union was looking at. But it took time, sometimes 30, 45 days before the individuals actually received a copy of that credit history. Now it's basically changed to where there's a government website, and it's on your slide, www.annualcreditreport.com. It's a safe, secure site that provides a credit history from all three reporting agencies. Now, my suggestion, my advice to you guys is do not pull all three credit reports at one time. The reason why, we only receive one credit history for free from the three major agencies. So my suggestion would be, pull Equifax, 4 months later pull TransUnion, 4 months later pull Experian. That way you can, all year long, you're basically able to see what's being reported, make sure it's the correct information, and be able to update it as you go instead of waiting until you receive a denial for credit. So that's available. Unfortunately, they do not provide a free credit score. At this point, there is no such thing. So we do have to pay about $16 to receive a FICO score. And now you're probably thinking, well, what is she talking about? We can get that score pretty much anywhere nowadays, right? But it is not a FICO score. When we apply for credit for loans, the creditor only relies on that FICO score. And I'm going to explain what that means. So if you're using, let's say, Credit Karma is a credit, it's a monitoring tool, but the credit score that they provide is not a FICO score. It's a model that they actually put together. So as they accumulate the data from what I say, they just kind of steal it from the creditor, from the three reporting agencies. They come up with a credit report for us consumers with a credit score, but it's not the actual credit FICO score. So just keep that in mind. With when you do obtain the information through annual, they do not sell our information. They do not share our information unless ourselves as creditors apply and provide an authorization for individuals to look at our credit. When you do go to Credit Karma or freecreditreport.com, those sites are free. And the reason why they can provide it for free is because they sell our information. So you might, notice that you're getting all kinds of offers, pre-approvals. It's because of that information that's shared from these sites. So the three major reporting agencies, and we're on the correct slide: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. These guys are the major players. They've been around forever. They don't talk to each other. They don't share their information. Not all creditors report to all three. So what happens? Our credit histories look different. If you pull your Equifax, you might notice that some accounts are not reported. Maybe some accounts are not updated. It's because not all creditors report to all three. Let's use Wells Fargo. They're a large lender. They report to all three bureaus. Now, let's say you bank with Centris. Centris reports just their information to Equifax, not the other two bureaus. And sometimes Wells Fargo, they sent an electronic tape to all three credit bureaus. Within 2 days, the following month, our information is updated. So if you pull a credit bureau, it's pretty updated. But if like Centris might send their information every other month or so, so the information, it's not up to date as you're looking at your credit history. And like I said, they use their own formulas. They don't talk to each other. The only time the three communicate with each other is if anyone becomes a victim of identity theft, and that individual, let's say they contact Equifax and report that they became a victim, they provide a police report, then Equifax automatically sends it to the other two bureaus so they can put alerts out there. That's about the only time that they really talk to each other. How many of you have looked at your credit history? Again, credit reports look differently depending on the sites that you go to. If you can go to the next slide, please. The report itself looks different. The information looks different, but these are the main components of a credit history. Your identification information, who you are, your date of birth, social security number, also known as, if you have a married name, what was your, what is the new last name? It carries all that information. Also does carry employment information. Sometimes that's a little bit outdated unless you apply for credit. Obviously, that information does not get updated frequently. It does carry public record information. And what that means is that it's not only reported on the credit history, that information is also available at the courthouse. So if sometimes there's individuals that go down at the courthouse and they actually, purchase things like unpaid property taxes or collections, judgments that they're sitting out there. And then they start sending mails to the client, to the consumer, saying, hey, we're an attorney firm, we can help you file bankruptcy. That's how they get that information, just by going down to the courthouse. Public record information basically destroys our credit history. So an account that gets turned over to collection or to a judgment, any IRS liens, student loan liens, those things are reported, and they basically destroy a credit history. They deduct points from our credit score each month, where, I've seen individual come in with a 750 credit score, and then they have to, something financially happened where they couldn't pay their creditors for a couple months. Within 3-4 months, their credit score now was down to a 500, 550. It could happen that quickly. And I'll explain how that works. Obviously, our payment history is what makes up the largest portion of our credit score. 35% how we pay our bills monthly reflects on that credit score. And then also there's inquiries. Inquiries is who's looking at our credit history. There's what they call a soft pull and a hard pull. If you come in and visit with us, work with us, we pull a soft pull. It does not deduct any points from your credit score. But if you go apply for a loan, you apply for any product, services, every time that creditor pulls your credit history, your credit report, 8 points are deducted from your credit score. So if you're out there trying to open credit cards, every time a request goes in for a credit card, major or store cards, 8 points are deducted from your credit score. Now, if you're shopping for let's say a vehicle loan or a mortgage loan, as long as your shopping happens within 30 days, we could have multiple inquiries, but only 8 points are deducted from our credit score. And the reason is that creditors, their inquiries are coded as such that basically the credit history, the credit reporting agencies, they're able to tell if that consumer is applying for a car loan, if they're applying for a mortgage loan, if they're applying for an apartment. Each request is coded as such and basically reported to the credit bureaus. All right, next slide, please. All right, the different types of credit. We have secured debt and unsecured debt. The difference between the two, any secured debt, obviously something with the collateral that the creditor can take back if we don't make the payments. Mortgage loans, if the loans are not paid, the deed of the house can be foreclosed and the mortgage lender can take the house back. The same with a car. Anything with any type of collateral. A vehicle loan, the creditor keeps the title, because if the loan is not paid back, they can actually sell that car and get their money back. That's what as consumers, we don't get that title until the loan is paid in full. When it comes to credit, any type of secured debt is always treated more favorably. They're considered good loans because it services things that we need in order to build stability, financial stability. So even things like, you might say a car doesn't really hold their equity, but it's something that we pay the loan and we own the car. We have a clear title that we can utilize if an emergency, a life credit emergency happens. We can usually use it as a leverage to obtain credit at a lower interest rate. And then we have the unsecured debt, such as credit cards, small personal loans, signature loans called. Right now, those type of loans, we find them more so with credit unions versus large lenders like your Wells Fargo. They probably would not give individuals a loan below 1,000, but a credit union will provide a signature loan at 300, 500, depending on the need of that individual. They also have a large say in the credit score, but unsecured debt is looked at it not as important, not as sort of a good debt is the secured debt. So if you're building your credit or you're trying to increase your credit score, you're going to need a combination of both. You have to have some secured to score higher each time you make a payment, and then maybe one or two credit cards to kind of carry that credit history and that credit score. Next slide, please. And then what I call the 5 C's of credit, that's what creditors, when they look at our credit history. I worked as an underwriter. We basically would sit in our office when individuals went to apply for a loan. They would visit with a banker, with a personal banker. The banker would take on the application. They would click and pull a credit history, and then that package was sent to underwriting. Me, is when I was in the underwriting industry, what I looked for first is that credit history. What is that? How much does that individual, who do they owe to? How much do they owe? Are they overextended? Are they paying on time? Do they have secure debt versus non-secure debt? That was the first thing that I looked at. And remember, keep in mind, the credit report will get us approved or denied for credit. The credit report, the credit history itself. The credit score negotiates the interest rates that we pay on those loans and those products. So if you don't pass the credit history, if we don't pass that point, then the loan is denied. No need to really know what that credit score looks like. So that's what you normally, when we apply as a loan, they look at the credit history. They look at the capacity. Can the individual afford to make another payment? And that's when the credit and the income come into play. They call it is the debt to ratio. They look at the income versus the debt. Can they afford, can this individual afford another payment? They look at the capital when it comes to home ownership or a business type of loan. A capital is, they own a home, they have a 401k, they have a business, they have another property. Can those items be, can the creditor receive cash flow from those investments? So they look at it more so in long-term type of loans. You want to borrow a mortgage loan, you want to borrow money to buy a house, and you're going to pay us back in 30 years. The creditor wants to know that there's other avenues that they can get their money back if that homeowner is not able to make the mortgage payments in time, or if an individual opens a business and they're not able to maintain that business. That's when you might read in the paper that companies filed a Chapter 11. That's when they liquidate machinery or things that they have in stock in order to pay some of that debt back. And then, of course, they look at collateral. If you're buying if you want to buy a house and the value of the house is 200,000, the appraisal of the house has to come in at 200,000 or more, because otherwise, the mortgage company is going to say, sorry, your house is only valued at 150. There's no way we can loan you 200,000. Now, you can certainly come up with 50,000 of your own money and still be able to buy that house. And then the character is based on that history. Creditors look for 2 years, 2 years of employment. If you paid your bills on time for 2 years, your address, do you move from place to place each year? They look for that stability through the credit history in the application. So the application will tell them who we are, the stability that we have in the credit history, who we owe money to, and that we manage our, debt well. Next, please. And then, as we know, we all pay bills, right? But some of our bills are not currently reported, such as the rental history, the utility history. Now, crazy enough, if you're buying a house and you never used credit, never had a credit card, but you always paid your rent on time, you paid your utilities, all the different services are in your name, you can certainly purchase a home using non-traditional credit. And that's why it's always important to pay all our bills on time. Rent paid on time, utilities paid on time, because they all have due dates. And if the bill is not paid by that due date, then they report it as, not paid on time. Just like your rent is due on the first of the month. If it's not paid by the 5th of the month, the lease states that that landlord, that management company, can charge a late fee. And then they report it as not paid on time. So just kind of keep in mind, I really don't like credit cards. I hear of that from a lot of consumers. They're like, I don't want to use credit cards. I don't want to borrow money, but you're paying bills. So make sure that those bills that you pay non-traditionally are paid on time as well. Next, please. Next slide. All right, so that credit history is specific to each account that's open. It kind of carries your credit limit. It carries your balances, how many payments have you made. And for those of you that are just looking to establish credit, just keep in mind that you need at least 12 payments. 12 payments of that history is compiled of 12 payments before a credit score is even available. Now, there's a myth out there that says that if you use credit cards, you should not pay your balance in full. I'm here to tell you it's the opposite. Save yourself a lot of money when it comes to that interest rate, those fees that you pay, and start utilizing a credit card where, especially if you're trying to build credit, whatever you charge that month, let's say you charge your gas for that month $100, you pay the full $100 at the end of the month. What you're doing is you're using that credit cards, so there's utilization being reported on your credit history, but you're saving yourself some money because you're not paying those the interest rate that a credit card carries, 36, 42, 45 percent APR. So if you're able to, and it's an unsecured, like a credit card, such of, or a signature loan, like your reserve that's attached to your checking account. If you don't have enough money, that reserve will kick in some money so you don't overdraft. That also should be paid at the end of the month, so that way you don't have to pay interest on that type of a debt. Next, please. Also, one thing that just as a reminder, the way the credit history is set up, um, accounts don't automatically drop off. What I mean by that, if you have a collection, a judgment, a tax lien, the public record information, even after the last payment on those type of credit, those accounts do not automatically drop off. So a lot of times what we see is that individuals, they file bankruptcy right away. 200 points are deducted from our credit score as soon as that bankruptcy is filed. But let's say that 10 years later, that bankruptcy was either discharged or paid through a Chapter 13. The bankruptcy account, the information still remains on our credit history. I'm so sorry, still remains on our credit history for 10 years. I'm so sorry. I had to use my phone because we're having technology issues in the office today. So I had to use my phone, and sorry about that. But again, it kind of stays on our credit history for 10 years. A judgment, a collection, even if after the last day, the last payment, it remains on our credit history for 7 years, unless it's negotiated during the agreement. I'm going to pay this collection in full. Can you remove it from my credit report? Would be the question to ask that particular creditor. But if it's not negotiated at the beginning, it will not happen. And then, of course, as far as the history of an account, it will remain on our credit history for 2 years. So if you have a car loan and you paid it in full, that history will still stay on our credit report for 2 years, and then it should automatically go away. And that's why it's important for us to take a look at our credit history to make sure all this information is current and updated on time. Next, please. And I kind of talked about inquiry. I kind of jumped the guns, but we talked about hard inquiries, soft inquiries. So I'm going to go to the next slide, please. And we are at the credit scoring portion. I feel like I'm talking really fast, but I want to kind of share this important information with you guys. So credit scoring, again, it's a combination of our credit history, how we pay bills, how do we manage the bills, are we overextended? And then all three credit bureaus have their own formula. They call it a beacon score, and that's how they come up with that credit score. Typically if we start out with no credit score at all, so as we start building our credit, we don't have a credit score at all. And then as we start making payments, we start paying things back, then that credit score kind of continues on increasing. Unless we default, that credit score also gets lower because of our late payments or judgment collections and all of that. Having said that, let's say that I start out with no credit score at all, and I want to build my credit history. I'm going to go apply for a credit card, just kind of give you a scenario of someone that does not have a credit history. I'm going to go apply for a credit card. Well, at this point, the creditor is going to say, hey, you know what? I don't know how you're going to pay me back. I don't know that I want to give you a credit card. They're going to say, well, you know what? Since I don't know how you're going to pay me back, I'm going to give you a credit card. I'm going to start you out with a 300 credit limit, and then you pay me back and see how you do. If you pay me on time, then I'm going to give you, I'm going to increase that credit limit. I'm going to give you a better credit card and all that. So that's how it works. It's just we kind of start out with no credit history at all. So I take out that credit card, $300, maybe a secure credit card. And then the first month that I received that card, I charge $50. At the end of the month, when my statement comes in, I paid that $50 back. At that point, what I did is I borrow, it shows that my credit limit is 300. I used $50, which left me with a credit limit of 250. But now at the end of the month, I paid the $50 in full. Now I still have a $300 credit limit, and that looks really great. So the credit model, the credit score model says, hey, this individual made the payments. We're going to give them 20 points because they paid it on time. So now my credit score, it goes to 300. Right away, I built after the first month, I started with a 300 credit score. The next month, I do the same thing. I charge 50. I pay it off as soon as I get the statement, and then another 20 points is added. Now my credit score is 320. So if you guys can kind of follow my method, my theory here is you make the payments and you make it on time. 20 points for a credit card payment are added to the credit score, and that's how you start building that credit score. Now, let's say that, I've used that credit card for 12 months. Now I have a 500 credit score. I need a car. My car breaks down. I go to the dealership, or better yet, go to your credit union or bank, borrow the money, and then go to the dealership, buy that car. Now, the bank, the credit union is going to own the title of your car, but you're going to start making monthly payments on that car. Maybe you're going to start at 18% because your credit score is in the 500s, right? But you're going to start making those car payments. You're going to start making on time. Now, remember, secure debt it carries a larger, when it comes to credit scoring, it offers more points than a credit card. So I make my first car payment and I make it on time, 40 points get added to my credit score. So this is the method behind the credit score. We build it with time. We build it with as we go. There's no magic potion that says, the credit score is going to change overnight. I don't know if you guys see those infomercials. We can guarantee that your credit score is going to increase by just clicking on here. It does not happen. Believe me, I've been doing this for a very long time, and there's no magic formula. It's just your time and paying everything on time that will create that credit score. So next slide, and one slide after that, please. All right, so the models, again, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, they have their own different models. And next slide, please. So what makes up that FICO score, which it ranges between 300 and 850? Again, 35% is how you make your monthly payments. So we have a lot of control on what our credit history looks like. 30% of that credit score is the amounts that you owe. So if you have, a few credit cards, make sure that your balance is always 30% below the credit limit that you have with those credit cards. 15% is the length of credit history. That's why I mentioned, you need at least 12 months to build, to kind of show that history. It's not going to happen over time. But once you have, a couple of accounts and you've had it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 15% of that credit score becomes the length. How long have you had those accounts open? And then 10% is the type of credit used. Again, installments and installment secured and unsecured debt. You have to have a combination in order to increase that credit score. And then 10% is new credit. So an individual that's out there trying to open credit cards, trying to open, credit, and they do so much in 1 month, it becomes a red flag for a creditor. They're like, what's going on that they're trying to open all this credit? So it's, and again, 8 points are deducted each time an inquiry comes in. So what's a good number of inquiry? No more than 3-4 inquiries per month would be a good number to stay with. Next page, next, please. Where can we purchase your FICO score? And again, part of our service is we provide a soft pull credit report with a FICO score. And it would be free if you just, right now, anyone that does their taxes, they can request a credit history from us. Just have to sign an authorization. We pull that credit history, we share it. We can schedule a Zoom time and read that credit history with you, and then provide a copy, and you'll have a FICO score and no cost. But again, like I said, there's no free FICO scores. So if you're looking to buy a house, maybe go buy a car, spend the $15.95 and purchase that score, because once you know what your credit score looks like, now as a consumer, you can negotiate your interest rates. If you have a 700 credit score and you go to Centris to get a vehicle loan, and they're going to tell you, we're going to charge you 9%, you're going to say, sorry, I'm going to go next door because they're going to give me a credit, an interest rate way lower because I have a good credit score. So it's always important as a consumer, as you're making major purchases. I'm not suggesting buying a score like every other month, or only when you're in the path of buying something, you may be making a large expense or taking on a large expense to know what your credit score is. It just empowers you as a consumer to negotiate those interest rates. So, again, next slide, please. Why does credit scores matter? Is because poor credit score, we just pay more for everything that we borrow. The cap in Nebraska is 18%. So if you have a credit score lower than a 650 right now, most creditors will charge 18% until that credit score increases and gets better. Next slide, please. I want to stop at 150 to allow you guys, time to ask questions. This is just a quick chart to show that if you as a consumer are wanting to buy a house, $100,000 mortgage, you're going to pay it over 30 years. You come in with a 720, 850 credit score. And right now the rates are a little bit lower. And I didn't change. I wasn't able to pull up the new rates for today, so forgive me, they're a little bit higher, but just to kind of give you the gist of it. If you come in as a 720, 850, and you're trying to get a mortgage loan, a conventional loan, the APR, which is the interest in the cost, the fees of that loan, would be set up at 5.299. So for an individual that's buying $100,000 home, their principal and interest payment would be $555. Again, remember, when you buy a house, the insurance comes in, also the taxes comes in. But if we're just looking at the APR, which again is the interest rate plus the cost of the loan, what they call points, at 5.299, and the individual just pays the same monthly payment for 30 years. At the end of the 30 years, that not only they would have purchased their home at 100,000, but they would have paid an additional almost 100,000 in interest only. Now, if you take a look at the bottom, 620 to 674, the APR changes to 7.12. The payment changes a little, but then look at the additional interest paid on the same mortgage loan. So at that point, if you're, thinking I'm going to buy a house, most individuals refinance their mortgage loan because sometimes they can get into a better interest rate. Also, keep in mind the value of the house increases each year. So while you're spending the loan down, your value of the house will increase. So you always have that extra equity available. But you can certainly take on a mortgage loan, and just by making one extra mortgage payment to the principal of the loan, you can pay that loan off in 20 years versus 30 years. And again, it's just kind of realizing how much you can pay back, just one extra mortgage payment. Because for the first 18 years of a mortgage loan, you basically pay an interest first before you start paying the actual loan amount. So I'm going to stop here. There's other information on how to establish a good credit history, things to kind of stay away from, and then resources. And again, Bree can share that PowerPoint if you just request it from her. She can share the flyers and also the PowerPoint. So I'm going to stop here, and just any questions out there?
If you have questions, go ahead and you can type them in chat or use the Q&A feature. Let's see. And if you want the slides, I can send them to you if you send an email to programs@DoSpace, and I'm going to type that in our chat. If you send an email to that email address, I will happily get you the slides and the flyer.
And then just keep in mind, if you would like to take advantage of our services, on the first slide, you can certainly log into our website. You can register for any class that's available, and we have the homeownership, the financial education available each month. Or if you would like to receive services from us, like I stated, we can meet one-on-one for the financial coaching. It just takes your time. We would, as soon as you contact us for that one-on-one, we basically email forms, the authorization, your agreement to participate, but also to pull the credit history. And then we would schedule a Zoom meeting for now, where we can sit down. I can share the PowerPoint. I can share the credit report, go over it with you, and then also either mail you or schedule a time for you to pick up that actual original credit history with that FICO score. And that service is available for free. There's no cost. It would just be your time. But if you do have if you have some time and you want to learn more about how to manage our debt, what is our relationship with our money, how do we spend money, how to change the behavior to become that now consumer to a consumer that sets up a plan. We pay less for the items that we buy, but also make the payments on time, and the importance of building an emergency savings account. And then again, like credit, what is credit? How establish credit, reestablish credit. There's different products available in the community that you can borrow money at a lower interest rate, even if the credit is not a positive credit history or a positive credit score. There's products out there that I, would love for you guys to be aware of. So even just if you would like to email me, and I should have put that um, but if you don't mind typing it in, is Julia, Julia, at fasinc.org. And you guys can certainly email me and I'll reply back with any questions that you might have. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to spend some time with you, and give us a call if you need anything or have any questions. Have a good afternoon and be safe.
All right. Thank you, everybody. If you are interested in watching this again, it will be recorded and available on our YouTube channel probably later in the week. And like I said earlier, if you're interested in getting a copy of the slides, go ahead and shoot me an email. I'll be happy to get those for you. Julia, thanks for coming and talking with us today.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any final questions before we go? All right, I'm going to take that as a no. Thank you everyone for attending. Please stay warm and safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.